Sex education. Sex is a complicated topic, especially for young people with endless questions and curiosity. Addressing basic questions is hugely important because lack of sex education can lead to riskier practices that poses a tremendous public health threat. And it also perpetrates flagrant misunderstanding about sexual health. However, a huge number of teens and middle schoolers still are not receiving an adequate sex education, such as how to prevent unwanted pregnancies, HIV, sexually transmitted disease, and even how to get some condoms. According to Newsweek letter, a little more than 40% of high schools in the United States provide information to high school students on hormone-based birth control, including pills, patches, intrauterine devices, rings, implants, and next-day emergency contraception. Schools still do not provide relevant sexual education to students who identify as lesbians, gays, bisexuals, such as materials with inclusive language. The goal of sex education classes is to give young people the opportunity to receive information, examine their values, and learn relationship skills that will prevent unprotected intercourses, reduce sex trafficking, and to help young people become responsible, sexual, healthy adults. The mission is to provide a year-round LGBTQ inclusive class starting in the middle school that concentrates on information according to their grade level, including biological, psychological, and social aspects. Beside the persistent high rate of HIV and AIDS and pregnancy among youth in the United States and countries around the world, sex trafficking is another concern rising from the lack of sex education. The lack of information makes women more vulnerable and a target for sex trafficking. Women are often forced to be trafficked or are willing to join and seek clients on their own. The entire nation gets affected by the lack of information. According to AIDS.gov, the United States government invested in the domestic responses to HIV has risen to more than $27 billion per year. If we could only use that money on educating the masses, the results will be different. And research by Youth Advocates concludes that each year, United States teens experience as many as 850,000 pregnancies, and youth under age 25 experience about 9.1 sexually transmitted diseases. By age 18, 70% of United States females and 62% of United States males have initiated vaginal sex. This result shows that current abstinence programs are not effective and they should be removed. Adolescents have a fundamental human right to accurate and comprehensive sexual health information. The macro factors and issues that create or sustain this issue is religion, cultural, and people's belief. Parents still feel protective and sensitive when it comes to talking about sex with their children. Parents feel that they have done a really good job educating their kids and think sex will never cross their mind. The thing is, sex is not the only topic that should be introduced in the class. For example, someone who is not familiar with the transgender, a classmate may not be familiar, and because they see the different person, the classmate bullies the transgender. Later, the transgender will fall to depression and maybe commit suicide. These are tragic events that happen that could have been prevented. Parent involvement is really important because it affects the process, because without the parent's approval, the state or the school is unable to teach the kids sex education. All states are somehow involved in sex education for public school children. As of March 1st, 2016, 24 states and the District of Columbia require public school to teach sex education, 21 of which mandates sex education and HIV education. 33 states and the District of Columbia require students to receive instructions about HIV and AIDS. 20 states require that if provided, sex or HIV education must be medically, factually, or technically accurate. States' definitions of medically accurate vary from requiring that the Department of Health review curriculum for accuracy to mandating that curriculum be based on information from published authorities upon which medical professionals rely. Are there certain policies or practices that create the issue? Many states define parents' rights concerning sexual education. 38 states and the District of Columbia require schools districts to allow parental involvement in sex education programs. 4 states require parental consent before a child can receive instructions. 35 states and the District of Columbia allows parents to opt out on behalf of their children. Is it our legal system or our criminal justice system? In this situation, this will be considered a legal system because the state law tries to address the concern allowing parents to exempt their children from sex education. Sex education laws vary greatly among the states. Most states have laws that address some form of sexual education in school. The Congress passes the law for education requirements, and the state passes their choice requirements and decide if they want sex education school should be in school. The school district makes the final decision. Some states require sex ed as graduation requirements, some states do not. Half of the states don't require sex ed to graduate. Even within certain states, they don't require sex ed. Individually, districts can choose to offer the course work. It is the state decision on what they would like to be placed in school education. Is it an excess of capitalism? Yes, it is an excess of capitalism. For years, no one wanted to talk to young children and teens about sex in public school. The chance to have a conversation about sexuality as a whole was unheard of in homes and schools. If students felt differently sexually from their peers for years, it was hidden, secret, in fear of shame and abandonment. In current times, sexuality is more on the forefront since we have students speaking out about their sexual preference. However, the United States educational system is clearly a breeding ground for anti-lesbian, gays, bisexual, and transgenders bigotry, which runs rampant on campus as part of capitalist educational policy. If this was untrue, there would be no need to protest gender-neutral bathrooms in school. It is not a culture of violence, but unfortunately some violence occur. More often, there are sexual assaults and rapes occurring on a college campus. At the age of 18 through 24, there is usually enough information given to know this is an unlawful act, but sexual assaults are increasing. According to Budweiser, rape is the most common violent crime in American college campuses. It is estimated that 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted while attending college. Most individuals go off to college thinking it will be a fun experience, and it may also be a sense of independence. When a woman is raped, it takes away from their confidence in who they are as a person. Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arkansas don't require sex education in school. These states have some of the highest teen birth rates in the country. It has been proven that poor school systems do not always provide an adequate learning environment. According to the Advocates for Youth, schools may wish to include evidence-based intervention in their sexual health education programs. However, there are a few factors that help shape the content of the sexual education program, such as standard regarding curriculum, also state and federal funding. Schools that are in poor districts may not have enough money to include sex education after providing teachers and books for needed core classes, but parents cannot rely solely on the school to provide much needed education regarding sex. It is also the parents' responsibility to educate their children about sex. The Department of Education plays a vital role in sustaining the problem. The Department of Education decides what type of curriculum can be learned in schools. Sexual education is not considered a vital role in the education of children to prepare them for graduation for general studies or college. According to the Department of Health and Safety in Texas, the department shall develop model education programs to be available to educate the public about AIDS and HIV infections. The program must be scientifically accurate and factually correct. The Department of Health will provide information, but where do the students go to get the information? There is no information provided that there is no sexual education information readily available to public school students. One macro change strategy is to create a lesson plan for each grade level of school. Elementary will be more of a health class. Early as 3rd grade up to middle school will be the basic topics. For example, a healthy lifestyle, exercise tips, food, and what food to avoid. Grade kindergarten through 3rd grade Good touch, bad touch, understanding body parts, proper anatomical names, stages in basic growth process, behavior that reduces the spread of communicable diseases like washing hands, not sharing eating utensils, and using Kleenex. Accepting of their uniqueness and a positive regard for themselves and others, recognize risk behaviors, sharing body fluids and method of prevention, unsafe objects like needles, broken glass, and refusal skills role play. Grade level 4th and 5th lesson plan will consist of biological explanation of anatomy and physiology for reproduction, for HIV, infectious diseases and puberty, physical and emotional risk and consequences prevention, avoiding body fluids and needles, unsafe objects, refusal skills, role play, infections control, hand washing, developing healthy attitudes about themselves and others, media influences, personal hygienes, and discussion of different types of relationships like friendship, family, and romantic relationships. Grade level 6 through 8 lesson plan will consist of young teenagers who are not physically or emotionally prepared for a responsible sexual relationship that include intercourses. Abstinence for sexual intercourse is the safest and most effective method to prevent HIV and STDs and unintended pregnancies. Teenagers need to discuss sexual limits. There are many ways to express love, attraction, and connection to a partner. Sexual intercourse or other sexual activities are just one way. Teenagers need to talk to their parents more or other trusted adults before they engage in sexual intercourse or other sexual risk behaviors, seeking reliable advice. Effective use of contraceptive and disease prevention methods, positive body image and healthy identity, dating violence, responsibility, and respect for themselves and others. Many religions teach their sexual intercourses to only occur in marriages. Defining what is HIV and STDs and the immune system and symptoms. Disease treatment, past, current, and future researches for HIV and STDs. And advise students of the law pertaining to financial responsibility for their children. High school lesson plan will consist of pregnancies, counseling, access to clinics, STDs, prevention, birth control, not just a pill. There's different ways you can choose from. The different terms of gay, transgender, puberty, inappropriate behavior. The grade level lesson plan will consist from 9th grade to 12th, accessing contraceptive disease prevention methods, resources and community service, adoption and abortions, review of HIV, STDs, and AIDS symptoms, effect, testing, and self-examination, refusal and communication skills to maintain sexual limits and healthy relationships, reproduction, gender identity and sexual orientation, promoting gender respect, respect for themselves and others, and individual differences, media influence, peers and parental influence or sexuality, analyzing appropriate behavior in dating relationships, advise students of the law pertaining to financial responsibility for their children. The point is to enhance not just sexual prevention. However, all of the other topics that have been discussed has been shielded from school. Instead of calling it sex education, we could call it a different name, a new name, because not just sex education will be taught.